Good morning, Nigeria, on the network service of the NTA. Next, it's as a prompt for our conversation, which is on 2023 and political expectations. Let's have a Vox Pop by our correspondent, Garba Mohammed Nata'ala.
While Nigerians are enjoying themselves, having a nice time, observing the New Year celebration, elections has drawn closer, and it will only be fair if you ask them what do they expect in 2023.
Election is around the corner, campaign is on, so all Nigerians are looking forward to elect credible leaders that will change the narrative, and the onus is on the INEC, that the umpire, to play the game according to the rule, to let the vote of the Nigerian masses count.
Whoever comes into power, I want the person to fix the economy first, and the security situation. The height of inflation is so high, and I want something to be done so that everybody can afford 3 square meals.
I hope that the government will develop this country, and I hope that the government will bring plenty money.
I just hope that we'll have a new Nigeria, a change, that everyone will be happy. So that's what I'm hoping for, and plan that it will come by God's grace, and all of us will witness it.
Since it's really this politics, we say it's a transition, isn't it?
Yeah.
So our prayer is we should have the best president, the president that will at least improve on things that have already started.
I wish for a united nation, a united country, where we see ourselves as our brother keepers. I would want to advise all Nigerians to follow their heart. What their heart tells them is what they should do. They shouldn't sell their vote because they want to make money from it.
Nigerians have bared their minds, and it seems they have a positive mindset towards 2023. Now back to studios for more discussion.
All right, and to discuss the topic, first let me introduce Yabagi Yusuf Sani, National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Right. And via Zoom, we have Samson Itodo. Samson is Executive Director, Yaga Africa. Thank you, Samson, for finding time to join us on this program on a new year. Well, this is 2nd of January. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, and also joining the conversation in the studio is Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, political scientist and public affairs analyst. Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us in the studio is Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst. You're welcome. Happy New Year.
Same to you. Happy New Year. Good morning, Nigerians.
You look like a chief today.
Chief, whether fighting or unfighting, we put into that in the course of the program. I know what how you are certified chief or not. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. You know, Nigeria is a nation that has a checkered political history. We know where we're coming from, and we all know where we are presently. And I'd like us to, take a critical look at the evolution, political evolution in the build-up to the 2023 general elections. Have we really matured politically? Are we getting it right? And I'd like to, first of all, bring in the politician among us to start this conversation. Yabagi Yusuf Sani. Where is our place in politics today?
Well, Happy New Year, Nigerians, once again. I think our place in history is that of a nation that is on the verge of assuming its mandate of leadership in the Community of Nations. Because when you look at Nigeria from all perspectives, you will agree that Nigeria is a promise of greatness by virtue of its resources, in terms of natural resources, in terms of human capital, in terms of the size of the population itself, and even the size of the land mass that we have, and even the location of this country is such that you cannot but give us that position of leadership. And that is why we play big in the global economic setting. If you look at our history, yes, we have a checkered history. From time to time, I mean, you have this intervention by the military, which of course upset the trajectory that you would have expected of a nation that I have described, which is favored so fabulously by nature itself. So yes, and every country really, goes through this kind of path that we are going through, today as a nation. Take China, Singapore, what have you. What happened to those countries is that they stumbled on leadership that was focused, was very passionate about the growth of the country, was somebody that has foresight of what their nation should be. We can be compared with those countries, if not with more superlative, descriptions. China, probably you can talk about population, but we'll talk about resources. China still imports its oil from Nigeria, so which means we have a comparative advantage when you look at other nations, because energy, it is that drives the revolutions that we have had all over from time immemorial. We are number 6 today, as a crude oil and gas exporting country. We are, in fact, you can describe us as number 4 when you talk about gas. And gas today, the world is talking about climate change, renewable energies. Gas is the bridge between where we are today and where we are going to be. So, and as a country that is described by 2050 or so will be the 3rd largest, populous country. And the fact that the black race has contributed immensely into development of humanity. If we want, look at it, and look at Nigeria itself. We have produced, even today as we speak, you have our sons and daughters heading the highly respected institutions in the world. United Nations, you look at World Trade Organization, you look at African Development Bank. It's Nigerians that are heading those organizations, either number 1 or number 2. So, and even in the business sector, or even in the economies like America, Britain, in their political setup, you find Nigerians really, in the position of leadership. So, I believe that Nigeria is a promise of greatness. And what has stood between us and that greatness is leadership. And leadership is what democracy gives. And democracy gives such leadership that you can rely upon, that is in tune with the global trend. And all the mistakes that we've made in the past, I think they're human. They can be overcome. Believe you me, we have what it takes to overcome it. That is why when we look at our history with the interruption that military, brought in, and the fact that we are able to rise again and be reckoned with as a democracy that should be looked up to and be proud of. Don't mind all this rigging, all these sentiments and what have you, that for dichotomies, I'm talking about dichotomies, which we have. I'm talking about triple hatred which we have as a nation, that here we are with our own culture, where we are also with Islamic influence, here we are with Western influence, and the Nigerian politician has to contend with all these influences. Apart from the fact that we have this regionalism, that is north-south, we also have this sentiment of religion and things like that. So when you look at all these dichotomies, all these things that cannot and do not really add up when you talk about credible leadership, then you can now appreciate where we are and where we are going to be. We are going to be great, as far as this country is concerned. Yep. Don't forget that INEC is doing quite a lot by bringing innovations that will address...
Yeah, we'll come to talk about that in the course of the program, and you'll be able to hear your views on that. Let's bring in the Zoom net before the network gets back. Samson, today we've listened to Yabaji Yusuf Sani in his opening comment, and the question came through to him, the checkered history of Nigeria. Now we're on the threshold of history, 24 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria. Are we there now?
Well, thank you very much, and happy New Year once again. Are we there now? Quite frankly, we're not there yet. But are we on the right path? I'll say yes, for a couple of reasons. First, in this 24 years of democratic expedition, we've had transitions from different administrations, and these transitions have been peaceful, and these transitions are in conformity with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And so to that extent, having managed those transitions, I would say that yes, we are indeed on the right path. The second point is the fact that we still have democratic institutions that advance democratic practice. Whilst these institutions may not be performing optimally, but these institutions exist. Because if you look at our experience with the military dictatorship, even though we still have those vestiges, of some elements of dictatorship and authoritarianism within our own time, to a large extent, we have agencies of protection within our constitutional structure that again advance democratic values. So if you look at institutions like INEC, we have seen an institution that has evolved over the last 24 years to where it is today. And look at the quality of our elections. Have they improved? Yes, to a large extent, the quality of our elections have improved. There's still so much to be desired. And that's why year in, year out, after every election cycle, we are conducting or undertaking reforms to strengthen our electoral process and inspire confidence on the part of people. If you look at institutions like the National Assembly, if you look at the judiciary, yes, whilst there may be misgivings about some actions and also the strength of these institutions, but they've also really contributed to our democratic development over the last 24 years. And so to that extent, I would say yes, as a country, we are making progress, but the progress that we made is quite tangential. And for some people, the fact that we've not reverted back to military dictatorship is a big victory for democracy. But then there are several gaps, and I'm sure that we will talk about those gaps, because the big question is, in these 24 years, how has democratic practice, how have the leadership that has evolved over the last 24 years fixed the basic problem of delivering on the welfare and the security of individuals? And when people compare their lives over the last 24 years, have there been any significant improvement, or there has been a decline in the quality of life, in the nature and structure of our economy, but more importantly, on how secure our people feel? And I'll say to that extent, governance has really failed. Because just looking at and listening to the Nigerians we interviewed, some of the expectations that they express, whilst Nigerians have not lost faith in democracy, the nature and the type of democracy that we practice, the one where leaders don't advance the public good, and we focus more on advancing primordial and parochial interests, is the one that citizens really expect, with the reverse, with the opportunity that the 2023 elections provide us.
All right. Thank you, Safni Todo, for that opening remarks that you have made. You actually raised a number of issues, and we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of this conversation using some of the points that you have raised. But now let's go to a political scientist himself, Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu. Your postulations this morning will certainly give us a good position of Nigeria's place politically from a professional point of view. So what's your own assessment?
Well, it's not a rosy assessment. There are a lot of confusions, contradictions, and even the expectations, because Nigerians are equally confused. We don't even know the brand of democracy we are practicing. We will only say it is a liberal democracy. And if you look at countries where liberal democracy are being implemented, you find crisis. And that is why the Chinese were clever. What they did was to ensure that they are implementing neoliberalism, but the state is actively involved. And as a countermeasure to the challenge that always comes with the implementation of liberal democracy, they institutionalize a welfare state and death penalty. And this is the contradiction. Liberal democracy gives you absolute right to be free to do anything. But that is an invitation to disaster, is an invitation to chaos. There must be order and orderliness. And that is exactly what Kagame is doing in Rwanda. If you like, you call it authoritarian democracy. If you like, you call it dictatorship, whatever you like, call it. But the contradiction, yeah, there must be order first. And if you look at Nigeria in the last 24 years, Nigeria has deteriorated from security to issues around corruption. The magnitude of corruption that has been committed in the last 24 years from 1960 to 1999, it was not committed. The freedom to steal, to do anything, because there is a deliberate assault on capital punishment globally. So you steal, you are jailed, and then somebody comes to power and you are pardoned. You steal, you go to EFCC and there is a plea bargain. I took 24 billion. I agree to remit 20 billion. I walk away with 4 billion. Who is losing?
Of our Commonwealth.
Of our Commonwealth. We shouldn't confuse election, just queuing to vote, as the same thing that we refer to as democratic governance. And even the proponents of democracy, I'm talking about people like Fukuyama, that said there was end of history because Soviet Union was defeated, said something. He said there is a great distinction between what is called liberal democracy and accountable government. That for him it is accountable government. Which government is accountable in Nigeria since we started democracy? How many of them have gone back to their constituencies to say, this is what I was given in Abuja and this is what I'm able to do? Go and see what ICPC is doing currently. Recovering monies that were meant for projects at the senatorial levels and constituency levels. Projects that were not executed. And the monies have gone to people that are representing the people. Do I vote you to go and steal my commonwealth, or I vote you to represent my interests and make my welfare the purpose of governance? So we must understand something, and we must understand where we are coming from. Now we say you are implementing liberal democracy, that is to empower the people. And as soon as we come to implement liberal democracy, the first thing we do is to deregulate the economy, to sack workers, to cut subsidy. Is that a panacea to peace, or it is a catalyst for insecurity in what we are witnessing today? If democracy is to disempower and dispossess the people, what are we? And that is why, if you look at the period between 1999 to date, a lot of crimes that we don't even discuss before, some lexicon have crept into our political discourse: hate speech, intolerance, banditry. These are words that were kidnapping, insurgency.
Things we used to hear from other crimes.
Yes, other crimes. And democracy is about peaceful conduct, is about orderliness, is about self-governance. And then when we have this liberal democracy instead of peace, today we are forming neighborhood watch.
On that note, let's bring in Jido Ojo. Can you paint a better picture?
I wish I could. And in all sincerity, maybe the best I can describe the situation we found ourselves is that we are not where we used to be, but we are not where we ought to be. We are perpetual underachievers. Contemporary countries that we got independence from their colonial masters have since left us. Quite unfortunately, we are facing the contradictions of liberal democracy, as Mala Amisu have said. Liberal democracy was to give vent to all and sundry, what we call participatory governance. That nobody should be left out. We are talking of inclusive governance. But in trying to have an inclusive governance, what is now playing out is inclusive stealing. inclusive East, inclusive military. So every tribe and tongue, every religion is now represented at the sharing of our common patrimony without as much as scant regard for the ordinary citizen. Look at the institutions of governance. The best we have received from our political leaders, whether we benchmark it against 1960 or 1999 when we had this Fourth Republic, is tokenism. And tokenism hasn't helped us. Because it's like somebody whose father has a ranch, who kills a cattle every day for people in the household to eat. And the portion that gets to those who labored to do the cooking is the bony aspect with very little meat on it. The ones that the dogs will be glad to have. And only very few has the meaty portion. So there's a disillusionment. And that's why there's a decline in participatory governance. Look at the voter turnout since 1999. The best we have had is less than 40%. The last presidential, the last election, it was about 33-35%. Why should that happen if people are very desirous of participatory governance or participatory democracy? People are asking themselves, why do I need to come out in rain and in sun to give, it's supposed to be a social contract between the leader and the led. So somebody campaigns and you say, I'm the best out of the lot, vote for me. I will make sure that you have welfare, you have security, you have, higher standard of living. These are the core issues on which campaigns have been launched over the past 24 years. Higher standard of living, security of your lives and property, and all whatnot. But what do we get at the end of the day? Mega excuses. Oh, I thought things were... I recall what the late Bola of blessed memory said when he was posted to Ministry of Power. This is somebody who said, I will turn stone to bread. I will make sure I give Nigerians electricity. Today, 24 years after that pledge, where are we with electricity? And we want to unlock the potentials of this great country. The last I checked, we are still producing less than 6,000 megawatts of electricity when we need 90-something thousand. So, at the end of the day, how do the nexus between democracy and governance, there's a chance, there's a gap that needs to be filled so that people can connect being under a liberal democracy with good governance. To say, we voted for Yabagi and he's delivering on his promises to us to secure our lives, to ensure safety and security and welfare. Because Section 14 sub 2B of the Constitution is very lucid. It says security and welfare of citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. Now, where is that security? Where is that? Let me pause you here, and I want to appreciate the fact that we have laid a good background for this conversation. Having discussed Nigeria yesterday, and we're now focusing on what is expected of politicians and Nigerians in the coming year. As a matter of fact, you mentioned in your first comment, Yabagi Yusuf Sani, that we had the military interregnums, in our political process over the years, and that has affected leadership in this country. But I'm just asking, where did you now get it totally wrong? Because there are also nations who evolved from military interregnums and now became democratic and are doing well. In Indonesia, I was privileged to, speak with a a retired military officer, who gave me history of military regimes in Indonesia and how the last military regime handed over to a civilian administration in that country. And what has been consistent from military to civilian is development projects, executed projects. Not I will do this, I won't do it, whether I'm military or not. But in our own military interregnums that we had looting as well. We had uncompleted projects and all whatnot. Now we are transmitted into democratic process. And in the 70s, when we adopted the presidential system of government, like I still recall Andy Young, then of the UN, when the idea of going presidential was conceptualized in the 70s and all that. The people like me, I was just a young man, but I was believing that wherever will come up as a system of administration in Nigeria will be just like America. So perhaps, did we not copy rightly, or was there anything wrong in adoption of presidential system, or should it have been better really? I mean, if we were with a parliamentary system that we started, right? Juxtapose all of that on our expectations come 2023 politically.
Well, thank you, Karen. I mean, the question you ask yourself is, has the military left us? Really? So we are still
$1 million question.
Yes, we are still in transition. I mean, even the person there now, you can't take military out of him. The man has not experienced anything other than the military experience, and that's what is exhibited in the governance. You take it to Obasanjo's time, where you are saying that they handed over to civilian. No, the military handed over to another military, and since then it has been military, until we get it right. We are still in transition, really, if the truth must be told. So it's up to Nigerians to ensure that we get it right this time around. I would not allow, the experience, of looting and all the things that we have mentioned that we don't want to continue with us. So the issue, people are not excited about elections because what you get is not anything different from what you've been having. That's what Jesus says. We are not where we are. Yes, it's not where we were yesterday, but we are not where we are supposed to be. Simply because we have not yet departed from yesterday.
Are we steps closer to where we should be?
Yeah, I think. Or
are we still?
2023 election may be it. May be that departure. If we vote rightly, maybe that departure. It will give us that departure from transition to now have a government that will work for Nigerians and will espouse all the democratic,
you say if you vote rightly, but the people who are going to vote for at the presidential level are people who have been in the system for a while.
I say vote rightly, like myself. I'm one of the I am not establishment candidate.
Candidate, all right.
But all the people you have, they still have the baggage of this experience which we want to get out of as quickly as we can. So the issue is up to Nigerians to now vote wisely. You can't be doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. So if we must get it right, like other nations, like Jide says, those we started with have since left us, and here we are, and we have more resources than those ones. That is the unfortunate thing. Yes, everything you want to talk about, human capital, we have, which is the most precious asset. And we are so lucky as a nation that we can decide not to even import anything if we choose to. We have the raw materials to do it. God has given us the source of getting money, which is crude oil and gas, which has been stolen. 80% of our money has been stolen, of crude oil has been stolen. Announced. Government itself has come out to say this is how much of your money that has been stolen. The 90 every year out will come out and tell you $5 billion of your money, has been stolen this year.
Our money.
Exactly.
A few number of people.
And not single. I can't remember one individual who has been taken before the court. No wonder you have the General Federation who is supposed to be the owner of, because that's his position. He owns the money that the entire nation generates, because he looks after it, and whatever he tells us is what we know as an accountant, as the accountant general. That one is a thief. The court says they're investigating. They say they have gotten some money he stole. You now come to the central bank, who's supposed to be your banker, the banker of the nation, of the government. He's also being alleged as a thief. You talk about where you are generating the money itself, crude oil and gas, the NNPC and all the oil and gas, they are thieves. So you're alleged that all these allegations and all that. No, allegations. Yes. No, I said naivety. It's not an allegation. Okay. He's confirming that $5 billion have been stolen. Okay, latest report. Yes. It's an authoritative document. So how can you can't get anything right here now? That's why you need to vote for people like us who have the knowledge. We know what is happening. We know how to solve the problem. And people like me are maybe there. They are out also. They want you to vote for them.
Okay, Yabaji Yusuf Sani, you've raised some very, very serious and pertinent questions there, but we'll get to that. Let's bring in Samson Ichudo. Samson, the guests in the studio are saying that Nigerians need to sit up. Right now, 2022 was quite loaded, from the primaries to the kickoff of the campaign in September, which will climax in February and March. Politicians hit the ground running. Now we have a population of 94 million registered voters in Nigeria. 13% are newly registered voters. So we're looking at a generational change here. Do you think they will appeal to how politics is played in Nigeria presently, which is definitely not issue-based?
Again, I maintain that democracy is still the best form of government, and there is no substitute whatsoever because of its capacity to advance impunity legitimacy. In this case, to advance popular participation in the governance of society. And when you look at the voter registration, and I see this with the license of responsibility, that the turnout for voter registration is a clear indication that Nigerians, despite the state of the polity, have not lost faith in democracy. Nigerians believe that they can hire and fire leaders that are incompetent through the ballot. And we should celebrate that, because that is one of the values, that's one of the sort of positive dimensions of democratic practice, that we have an opportunity to hire and fire leaders, unlike other forms of government. And so we've seen this exponential growth, in the number of people who have showed up to register. And I would say that as much as we move across border, and we should move from just the presidential elections and go down even to state house of assembly elections. We've seen that enthusiasm on the part of citizens who are eager to cast their votes. The best that the state owes them is to ensure, one, that when they show up to vote next in February and March, that the environment is safe and secure for them to elect leaders of their choice. And so when we talk about the expectation of whether it's enticing or it's interesting, that's one of the expectations that they have, because we know that we are grappling with multi-dimensional crisis as a country. The second is, if you look at the options that the parties have presented, yes, whilst for the presidential elections, you see it's a mixed bag, because people bought their ways, bought their tickets, and quite frankly, the commercialization of the entire process is such that those who secure the nomination are either the highest bidders and the highest spenders. Again, it's just what the political system has thrown up that requires a lot of reforms. But when you look down to governorship, to National Assembly, and also State House of Assemblies, I will not overgeneralize, and I'll say that there are people who are on the ballots who the people actually want to lead. Again, that's perhaps when they go to vote in the next election in February and March. We will see to what extent that these people represent the popular choice and the popular will of the people. But there are people on the ballot who enjoy popular support, as much as we say that yes, the entire candidate nomination process was highly commercialized. There was substitution of candidates and very illegal substitution of candidates, and you can see the controversies that plagues the candidate selection process. The third dimension is about this issue around turnout. And this is where Alhaji Adesanya and his cohorts and his team and his people and his colleagues in political parties have failed in political education, in voter education, as well as political mobilization. I think the political parties can do a lot more because placing the burden of voter education, on INEC and civil society is unfair because political parties are the first beneficiaries of funds for elections. And so the expectations that members of the public will have is that political parties will play their role in educating citizens on the value and the need for them to show up and vote on next election. But also tied to that is what are people going to be voting for? If you don't present a manifesto that responds to the immediate and the future needs, of Nigerians, then people will be preoccupied by other considerations when they go to vote. And I think that it's important that as a country, this particular election provides us an opportunity to focus on the critical issues of the economy, of security, of national integration, and more importantly, about justice. Because we look across the country today, we see institutionalized and state-sponsored injustice. And that needs to be addressed. But we have for Nigerians, who are Nigerians and are citizens of this country, they need to feel that they can secure justice regardless of their class, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their religion. And only then can we say that the state has delivered on its responsibility. But yes, even though state represents the state has a local of cohesion and force, but that force and that power that the state has needs to be regulated within certain limits. And the whole notion of human democracy is about limits to power. And so we cannot advocate that states should continue to use power to clamp down on citizens. So what's the essence of human rights in our constitution? But yes, the state does have power, but no concept of the legal state. Yes, there is protection of power, but there is also limitation of the exercise of that power. And I still maintain that as far as Nigeria is concerned, the Democratic Party still remains the best, but there are actions that need to be taken to advance the public good. And in this case, it's going to take the state performing its own functions and its own responsibility in the social contract that Julie talked about, but also citizens performing their own role in paying taxes, in complying with paying the law, but also participating in the governance.
The expectations of Nigerians are multi-dimensional in terms of election, in terms of political behaviors, and that's why I want to bring in Dr. Hamisu here again, because in political science, that's what is called a behavioral theory. Now, the behavior of politicians, the narrative, the use of words in campaigns, and what have you, does it leave anything to be desired? Because of course we've watched, even on social media, setting on unhealthy conversations between spokespersons of different political parties in the way they are wooing the Nigerian public to vote for them. You should have just mentioned the issue of voter education and what have you. But I think that the social media has helped Nigerians in terms of voter education and knowing who to vote, voting rights, as Yusuf Sani earlier mentioned. So, Dr. Hamisu, are we getting the right narrative with respect to the expected the election that is forthcoming vis-a-vis what Nigerians are expecting this election? Some are even saying there's a fear that the election may not hold in some places like the southeast and other parts of Nigeria where we have insecurity and what have you. So what's your own take on that?
Yeah. Before I answer the question, I want to say something pertaining to what my friend Samson did raise. It is not enough that every 4 years we recycle people that will mismanage our destiny and we call it democracy. So I give you 4 years to loot me. We organize the election at the end of the 4 years. We vote you out of office, retire you to go and enjoy your loot. And we say we are practicing democracy and that it is the best form of government because you can hire and fire. No! it must include discipline. If you don't perform, if you steal our resources, at the end of your 4 years, we vote you out of office and we jail you. Then we can say that is democracy. But when we give people 4 years to loot us or 3 years to loot us, and after that again we organize elections, the excitement that is going to these elections are multidimensional. First, the politicians, the professional politicians in Nigeria don't own any industry. The only thing they are into is politics. It's only in this country that I'm seeing that kind of a thing. Other places, it's part-time. Politics is full-time because it is something that is continuous. But the actual thing that you need to do for your own upkeep and your family, you need to go out there and work. You leave Anchor local government and then you come to Abuja because you are representing your people, then you don't do anything, and then every month we give you money, and then you decide how much you're going to pay yourself in terms of housing allowance, how much you're going to pay yourself vehicle allowance, even the vehicles that such a person, if you give him 10 years, he cannot raise the money to buy. That is the kind of things they are giving to themselves. And you say that is democracy. Then you have the voters themselves. You know, something talked about the commercialization of vote. You can't divorce it from liberal democracy. Liberal democracy is about somebody's personal interest. You know, when you have public interest colliding with personal interest, where people tend to pursue their personal interest over and above collective interest, what you have is a disaster. Nobody is doing anything for the interest of the public. So, for instance, if they bring file for me to sign a contract that will renovate this place and make it world standard, the first thing I'm going to ask, what is in there for me? Or the file don't get passed. And that is why you are having abandoned project. That is why projects will be conceptualized. It will be used to remove money. For instance, the integrated power project, how much was budgeted? The same. Look at the railway. Look at a lot of things that have happened in this country. So we use our problems to justify why we need to remove money from the treasury. We use this problem to remove this money from the treasury, and then we share the money, and the problem is not solved. The monies are gone, and that's why today Nigeria is broke. So, Rabaji says something. In some senses, we have the institution, we have this, we don't have the right character. We don't have the discipline. We don't have the commitment. We don't have the patriotism. So, if you like, take Nigerians to America to learn manage America. America will become a third world country. Bring Americans to Nigeria. Nigeria will become an Eldorado on the planet because they have the right frame of mind. An English person or European, if you give the person anything that the person don't merit, the person will flatly reject it and say, no, I didn't merit it. I'm not going to accept it. In Nigeria,
awards upon awards.
Of course. So your family will even curse you.
Yes.
For rejecting such an offer. They give you local government chairman today, your friends are congratulating you, they go to newspaper houses, and then they make advert with their picture so that they don't even doubt their name if you want to share the patronage. So they put their picture there so that when you're sharing the patronage, you come and people and Obajide na new. I don't come. So how do we know?
So before you ask a question, let us share this, you know. I used to have a local government chairman, you know, during the military regime, you know. Yes, but this man will be trekking. I see him at the bus stop. I said, sir, why are you at the bus stop? He said, no, that, well, his driver took some councillors somewhere, they're going to do some investigation, but he decided to use bus. I said, what kind of a chairman are you? He said, that is the way he wants to do it. Yes. As a matter of fact, I don't want to mention the name, but it's the popular name in Eziago, where I come from, my councillor in Enugu State. You know, he retired as a DG, right, and he's also a professor at the moment. So this is a man who we can't forget him. Over 20 years, getting to 30 years, he was chairman of that council area, right? But we've had a bunch of local government chairmen in that place from then till now. We can't even remember the names of some of them. They didn't do anything spectacular. And this man did a lot of things within the council area, but also trekking. He didn't have a private car, even after serving. I was up to today. We You salute him.
And you respect
him, you know, for that. Today, go and see the government chairman. They have houses in Abuja. Yeah. They have they have a fleet of cars.
Exactly. Let's bring in Jide Ojo into this conversation now. We've been talking about Nigerians asking for dividends of democracy. Where does voter apathy comes in? We lose interest in politics and we expect so much more from it.
My sister, we need to contextualize the issue that we glamorize as voter apathy. I've said at different fora that our voter apathy is even more or less self-inflicted. Self-inflicted in the sense that you cannot run election the way you run election and expect people to participate massively. There is no amount of voter education or political education that can be instituted. If you give hundreds of billions to National Orientation Agency, people will not come out. You know why? The system is not liberal enough to engage and make people to participate on a large scale. And I said this advisedly. I've been privileged to observe election in at least 4 other countries apart from Nigeria. And I've been observing election in Nigeria since 1999. I've been to US, I've been to Uganda, I've been to Egypt, and I've been to Ghana. Now, in Ghana, let me start with Ghana. Ghana has what is called early voting provision. So if, as you and I, will be engaged during the elections, maybe analyzing, maybe presenting, you cannot vote even when you have your PVC. Now, INEC is recruiting about 1.5 million adult staff. They will not vote. Security agencies, all of them, about 1 million, put them together, from police to army to DSS and all of that, they will not vote. All observers, accredited observers, will not vote. All journalists covering election will not vote. Why would they not vote? Why should they not vote? You are talking about 5 million people already excluded, even if they have their PVC.
Yeah.
Because there is no provision for early voting. And this is no rocket science. In Ghana, when I went there in 2008, the election that brought in Professor Atta Mills, it was even on a Sunday the election was held. Because they have a day, start that election was sold in the constitution of Ghana. Nobody raised eyebrow to say, this is our religious day. It's a day of worship. We cannot. No. All the Christians in Ghana in 2008, they shifted their vote, their service to Saturday. Because they know the date is sacrosanct. Now, early voting provision, what does it mean? In select polling units, maybe at ward level, a week or thereabouts to the election, you allow people who will be on election duty or who will not be available to vote on election to come and vote. But the only thing is that their votes will not be counted. It will be sealed and kept until the general voting. And then it will be counted along. There is no provision like that. If you follow the November 8th election in US, I was also in US in 2010. In most states in US, elections hold between 12 and 13 hours. In Nigeria, election holds for 6 hours. Whether it's 8 to 2 or 8:30 to 2:30 or 9 to 3, it's 6 hours. Now, in US, you have election in a particular state, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you don't need to shut down the economy. On your way to work, you can vote. During your break, you can vote. On your way back from work, you can vote. Nobody works 12 hours. Max 8 hours. So in between, without even restriction of movement, you have latitude of when you can vote. That's second. Even in so don't say it's US. Don't compare apple and oranges. In Egypt, I was there in 2014. The election that brought in Al-Sisi. In Egypt, election holds from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And who are the people that conduct election? Judges of the court are the ones that conduct election. And elections are held inside classrooms, public schools alone.
well lit. So even at 9 p.m., I see children coming with their parents to vote. And in Egypt, there is even no permanent voters card, continuous voter registration. Nothing. No. What they do simply is that they have national identity card.
That's
so,
our need.
Our need. So once you are 18, you are flagged, they are told where you are going to vote. They don't spend billions on continuous voter registration. Their national ID card is what they use to vote. So compare our home, then come down to Nigeria. On election day, you shut down the system. You shut down, so people cannot move from point A to point B because you don't want people to come. No vehicular movement. Now I live in Cuba. I work in Wuse. I registered in Wuse. How do I commute to come to Wuse to vote? Because there's shutdown of the system. Many people so these are things that other countries take for granted that makes it. What of mailing ballot? What of diaspora voting? What of even sorry, clear. Wait 1 second. In Kenya, so that we don't use America. In Kenya, did you know the election that brought William Ruto to government in Kenya? The prisoners in Kenya voted. Prisoners, those who are in prison, they voted. Kenyans in diaspora in 12 other countries voted in that election. So what is wrong with us? These are African countries like
yes, really, you have a very solid point, because on this program some time ago where we had a similar topic, I raised the issue of diaspora voting. I raised the issue of early voting. Yes. Well, these are not rocket science things that we can do.
And to make things the process easy.
And now that we're even advanced further, we have BMAS, and other things that we're BMAS rather, that we have inculcated into our electoral system, which is good, because perhaps the reason why we say no vehicular movement and all of that is because of rigging and what have you. But we're already coming out of rigging, with all these new introductions or new blood injected by INEC into the electoral system. But when we talk about the Electoral Act, I had thought that these issues could be addressed, especially diaspora voting. The Nigerians have a lot of people outside this country. All right. So, well, we'll continue the conversation after this break. Do stay with us.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. With on the remembrance emblem with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
The occasion gives cause for reflection and remind us of the sacrifice made by our armed forces in preserving the unity of the country.
All ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Land. Send your donations to this account. Account name, Emblem Appeal Lunch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency. NTA.
I'm a teacher by profession. I train myself. I could not even remember some of them and by their approach, greeting, and respect.
I make beads. I liquid soap is I have stopped buying liquid soap from the market. I make it and I teach these young ones how to do that. And when I do, it is not for any fee.
In most cases, I serve as consultants. Many people come to me inquiring how to go about doing the farming. I normally direct them on what to do.
Right now, I'm not into any paid job, as I said, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Senior citizens over the years have shown that they are still capable of working. They have shown that retirement is only but a social construct, not a limitation. Senior citizens until the end carry around a wealth of knowledge that we can tap into. They have walked these journeys we now walk today. They have amassed all of these experiences so they can stand holding the torch so we do not stumble in the dark. Our senior citizens are national assets, packed full with inestimable value. They should not be condemned to a life of obscurity, but one where they serve to illuminate our path. Promoting senior citizens for intergenerational workforce.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the tap of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. All right, we thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria for Monday. As a matter of fact, the first edition of the program in the year 2023, and we're happy you're with us.
And it's quite hot.
Enjoying it. I mean, whenever it is political, every Nigerian is awake because we are political animals have to sit them down. But what is actually not sitting well with Nigerians is the fact that some have taken politics as a profession, even when they didn't study political science, like myself and Dr. Hamisu. Yet, I mean, when they take positions of authority, they don't know how to do the authoritative distribution of scarce resources. That's just what the problem is. And at this point, let me bring in again Sam Itodo. Sam, we are talking about remediation now. What do we need to put in place to grow our political culture and enhance our leadership recruitment process?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was Sam's connection. Yeah, so you can.
Before, I don't know. I would have loved Sam.
Yeah,
I have some comments on what he said. He wants him to talk about voter apathy and things like that. I think he needs to be more civil when he's talking about politicians. He said Yaba Gisani and his cohort. I mean, you don't use such language to describe your leaders. It's not acceptable at all. So he should take it back, please.
Okay.
And also, you should understand that he says the politicians, the political parties are supposed to fund the voter education. You see, this is the problem. This is my problem with armchair politicians like Sam himself. Itodo. You sit comfortably in some offices with maybe 10, 20 people. And you want to now criticize national chairman of political parties that are presiding over affairs of thousands, millions of people. And you now say they don't spend money. Which, look at what has happened. Before, government used to, fund political parties. Today, government does not fund political parties. And this is an economy that underlying conditions are two. One,
should government fund political parties?
I'm coming. We have two underlying conditions, which is as a result of ineptitude in governance. What is it? Ignorance, poverty. It's pervasive in our country. And you now expect people to think independently, because democracy is about people thinking for themselves, because it's government of the people, by the people, for the people. So these people are pauperized. Political parties are not able to even collect the fees, the 1,200 naira or 120 naira that you ask people to pay. They can't even afford it to pay. And when you hold primaries, people cry that, oh, you are charging too much fees and things like that. And these primaries and voter education cost money. We are not like the CSOs who gets their money from abroad, get some millions of dollars and things like that, and come and disturb politicians that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Another thing that Jide mentioned is that voter apathy is because of the way we run the elections themselves and the process itself. Believe me, Karen, our electoral process is overregulated. The 2022 Electoral Act has introduced, yes, some innovations. But what has happened is that even for you to get yourself on the portal of INEC, it's a Herculean task. You have to go to court. And we are complaining that court is becoming INEC. They have made it so because you put so many regulations, too many regulations, as if it's not democracy you are running. You have to go back.
What are those regulations you are talking about?
The regulations, let me tell you. The act itself, because it was prepared by the politicians, the people in National Assembly, in collaboration with people in INEC and some of us. But when the act came out, INEC now, they have their own law that is not in tune with what the law says.
With the Electoral Act?
With the Electoral Act. And for you to get them to think that, oh, no, it can't be so, you have to go to court to get INEC to see the reality of the fact that no law can supersede the Act of Parliament or the Constitution or the grand norm itself, the Constitution. They say their own rules and regulations supersede the Electoral Act and the Constitution itself. So you have to go to a judge to tell them that no, your rules, your regulations cannot supersede what the Electoral Act is. So this is why you are having, courts. The INEC is having over 700 court cases and what have you. A care is not taken. We conduct this election. What you find is people running to court because sensible things, that obvious things that you should do, they refuse to do it. So that's why we have voter apathy. And the issue in this country is that we must liberalize the process. Okay, so that's what democracy is.
I think we are lucky back now. Yes, we're lucky to have you to the back, and I take it you had my question anyway, even though we lost your connection. I was talking about what we need to do as a people to change political culture or grow our political culture, and of course enhance leadership recruitment process, which election does. But again, the primaries by the party also begins the process by nomination before election. So what can we do to change the narrative?
Sorry, please confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, please. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. On a political culture, and first, what's culture? Culture is the way of life, is a way of doing things. First, we need to, build consensus around what kind of leadership do we need as a country, and political parties need to ensure that leadership recruitment is based on merit. And it's based on individuals who have the requisite capacity and the character, to deliver public governance. And that's one. The second is you need to have people who have an understanding of one, the country, the political dynamics, the history of the country, and people who can forge national unity. Now, you also need to look at people, who can work with people from other cultural and other religious divides to advance that collective vision that we have for our country. And for the leadership recruitment, and when you look at political parties, and I say this, that in the post-election, in the post-2023 era, we need to have a deeper conversation about political finance reforms and around candidate selection. This whole procurement of delegates that we experience within our polity needs to stop, and it needs to change. Again, I put the buck before the political parties, because they are the ones, who present leaders for Nigerians to vote at elections. And so they have to exercise circumspection in the recruitment of leaders. And so this whole delegate procurement process, this high cost of nomination, high cost for nomination fees needs to be revisited, because quite frankly, when your political or leadership recruitment process is defined by the highest bidder and the highest spender, what you end up with are political leaders who have absolute disregard, for the will and the aspirations of the people. So that needs to change. For me, the last point, and I heard Alhaji Abaji Sani quite uncomfortable with my comment on the cohort, and when I used the cohort, I used that in trying to classify the political parties indeed as a cohort, because they are all political institutions. But it seems he wasn't comfortable with that, and I'm sorry if you find it that classification offensive, but it wasn't in any way to disregard or undermine political parties. But political parties are still considered a cohort because they have the same, they share the same function, and to a large extent the same characteristics, and I use that in that particular form. But again, on political mobilization, political parties have a fundamental role, to mobilize citizens and conduct voter education, and that responsibility is shared. I am completely against state funding of political parties. We tried that before. We saw what happened to our political system, and then the state also withdrew state funding for parties. But I think that parties also need to look inward. If you mobilize members, things like membership dues, are ways that parties can also generate their revenue. There are innovative models for parties generating their revenue, but I think that it's important that also within our political system, incumbents don't have access to state resources, to fund their campaigns. If you look at the US, which has been referenced, when the president of the United States of America is contesting for office, they have to pay if they are going to use state facilities. But in our own time, once you are an incumbent, you have access to unfettered access to state resources, and that creates an uneven position for other political parties, because it disproportionately affects parties who are not in power. And these are the things that I think it requires reform in the post-2023 elections era.
Samson Ichido is the Executive Director, Yega Africa. Thank you so much. We have to let you go now. Time is running out. Thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria, and compliments of the season. Jideojo, I'm going to come to you. How do we begin to get it right? 2023 is just around the corner. A new government is coming in with a load of burden on it.
Well, I think whoever comes in must understand that is coming to meet a huge challenge, both economic and politically. And I differ a bit when people say, let's look for a good man, let's look for the right man. If the system works, whether you are good or bad, you are regulated by the system. The impunity that has eaten deep into our polity is why we feel the system cannot work. Look at what is happening to Donald Trump in US today. They have declassified his tax returns.
they are holding him accountable for so many things he did while his administration was on. How many past government have we held accountable?
Same in South Africa.
The same in South Africa, the same in Jerusalem, in Israel, where a former mayor of Jerusalem has been sent to. Even in France, something totally raised the issue of party finance. A former president of France who collected money from which is illegal to their system was sentenced to jail. So where is that sense of accountability in Nigeria? So the impunity that pervaded the system is why we feel, because why we feel the system cannot work in our favor as citizens. Because come to think of it, 5 of us are running for government. If we know, as the Chinese knows, that if you steal, it's death sentence. It's not about I was I had a dream, or it was witches and witchcraft that said I should go and steal. So the system is not the system has not
let's allow him to do that. Yes, you're not happy with the system, the political system in Nigeria. What system do we? Is it liberal democracy, or do we need a dark?
For me, Acton said for all forms of government, let first contend that what is best administered is best. And that is why we see that liberal democracy in UK is different from liberal democracy in America, is different from liberal democracy in Portugal. Why is it like that? It is because of the peculiarity nature of the people. The way we are in Nigeria is akin to, you come to a roundabout, and then everybody wants to move at their own pace, and they choke the entire place. And then we now keep one person as traffic warder to tell them what to do. These are all adults that owns a car, that drove their cars from their homes. But when they go to where they needed to carefully use their senses, because of lack of self-governance, we are requiring a traffic warder to say, hey, you stop, you pass.
Even with the traffic light.
Even with the traffic light.
Yeah, but
so how do you
I think we have told Nigerians as Action Democratic Party what we are going to do. We're going to govern by the rule of law. Because when you govern by the rule of law, all these things we are talking about, believe you me, would be a thing of past. Because we are all equal. That's what Jide was saying, that's what Dr. Hamisu is saying, that you must have a system that works. A system that is known to everybody. And if the president, like by the grace of God, I become the president of this country 2023, believe you me, we are going to govern by the rule of law.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Abaji Yusuf Sani, National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and also a presidential candidate. Thank you so much for your input to this conversation. And we signed up Samson Itudo, Executive Director, YAICA Africa. And Dr. Abdurrahman Habu Hamisu, political scientist and public affairs analyst, saying it as it is. It's always a pleasure to have you, General.
The pleasure is mine.
And Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, Chief Jide Ojo. Public affairs analyst. I love the way you put it across, and I'm sure the viewers have got, and I'm sure
we have no other country but this one.
Yeah. Okay, which is next?
Tens of thousands of people were expected to pay their last respects to former Pope Benedict XIV when his reign in state begins at the Vatican. He died on New Year's Eve at the age of 95, almost a decade after he stood down because of ill health. Pope Francis will preside over Thursday's funeral, the first time that a pope will be buried by his successor, whereas the Vatican says the service will be simple, solemn, and sober. People are allowed to pay respects until 7 p.m. each evening. Arrangements for the service are not yet clear, as many of the traditions associated with the death of a seventh pope are not required. The funeral will take place in St. Peter's Square before the Pope Emeritus is laid to rest in the tombs beneath the basilica. Benedict XIV became the first pope to resign in 600 years in 2013, citing ailing health.
Prometo manter
In Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been sworn in as the new president amid tight security due to threats of violence by supporters of his far-right predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro. He led the country between 2003 and 2010 and defeated Jair Bolsonaro in October's poll 2022. In his speech, Lula vowed to revamp the country's economy. He decried the policies of his predecessor, who went to the US on Friday to avoid the handover ceremony.
Well, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, the first edition of the program in 2023. I'm happy to have been with you today, and I will return tomorrow for another edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Happy New Year once again, and I'll see you again tomorrow. I am Kieran Umayo.
And I am Jimmy Yusuf. Thank you so much for your time. Do have a blessed year ahead.
Thank you.